weekend. Labor Day, wrong end of the month. Wrong. It's artificial anyway, isn't it? Oh, there's Doyle. My goodness. Would all the PIMC teachers please raise your hand? 1, 2, 3. Good. If you've only ever been to Sunday morning, which of course is where the ultimate teachings come, there are other wonderful opportunities most nights of the week. And Friday morning at 11:30 on the internet with Doyle. There's a lot you can do here with some remarkable human beings. I feel so privileged to have the company that I have in the teaching, and of course in our community. So, there's that old question, have you noticed that life is unstable? Has anything happened recently that you really wish hadn't happened? And where can we take refuge? And so for 2,500 years, people have been following the teachings of the Buddha, not so much in worshiping the Buddha, though there's a lot of that. Probably 95% of Buddhists in the world think of the Buddha as a deity, which is not what the Buddha taught. In fact, he forbade the formation, the creation of images of himself. And so if you look, and I've seen actually the early art in Buddhism, there's a throne and there's a tree on the throne. Or there's a wheel, the eight spoke with the wheel of the Dharma. But then the Greeks came. It's wonderful history. We think of Asia and Europe as separate, but people have been going back and forth across the land bridge forever, in great numbers, the silk trade. And when the Greeks came and they knew how to really carve the human form, they taught the Buddhists in India how to carve the human form. And so the earliest Buddha images look a lot like, guess who? Apollo. And they have the same hair, right? It's Greek. Very interesting. So we have this chant that we do. It's a modernization of the ancient chant. But refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. Refuge in being awake. And that's not an abstraction. Are you awake right now? Are you aware? I'd say there's awareness here. You'd be falling over if you weren't. Awareness, I take refuge in that knowing and in the Dharma and the way things are, the way I discover things to be, and in community. The community of all life and the community of awakening beings. So I invite you to join me. We'll sing it through twice. I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. Once more, I take refuge in the Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Buddhaya. I take refuge in the Dharma, the way of understanding and love. Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Dharmaya. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community of mindful harmony. Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya, Namo Sanghaya. The hall in which we're sitting, and you can see there's a little plaque outside the door above the frame. It's the Ruth Denison Dhammadina, which was her Buddhist name, meditation hall. And I thought of her during the singing and how pleased she would be if she could be here right now. She died 4 years ago. She wrote the first $10,000 check to make this place happen in 2000, handed it to me, and I went, she said, create a center, and I went, I have no idea how to do that. But it's her incredible generosity. This building, this is a profound part of her legacy, what she's brought to us. So I thought of her. I almost lost track of the guitar chords. I was thinking, oh, Ruth, how happy she would be to see what we're doing here. So as we humans have done for so long, let's stop. At least stop our bodies. Let's stop and land here. To be in this moment, with it, the moment being exactly as it is. There are some strategies that we use, ancient strategies for training the mind to be here now. Central among them is paying attention to something that's here in the present moment, which is the breath, the body breathing. Notice that it breathes in and breathes out. Notice also that there are sounds. And there's life elsewhere in that which we each take to be our body. The legs, the feet, the hands, the back, the face. You probably discovered already that the mind has been pretty busy. It may have had 1,000 thoughts. Don't fight the thoughts. Don't fight anything. In order to have a fight, there has to be a you. Why not just lay all that down and come home to what is, which is the sensations of the body as it breathes. And when the mind wanders, those wandering thoughts self-destruct. They come into being and they exist, and then awareness emerges simultaneously with the thoughts ending themselves. And then we can choose to bring this awareness back into the body. So it does take a certain subtle, persistent effort to come home to breathing in and breathing out. But there's no violence. There's a definite quality of love. The love which is the practice of accepting everything, letting there be room for everything. It's quite different for many of us, particularly at the beginning of our practice, to sit still. We're so used to adjusting almost constantly. But we do try to sit comfortably upright, and it doesn't matter if you sit cross-legged or some other way. What's important is upright and still. In doing so, we encounter the discomforts that arise with as much kindness as we can. Sometimes we even put aside the breath and put awareness deeply into the discomfort, into the liking and disliking of discomfort, the sensations of discomfort. And if there comes a moment when it's just getting kind of tense and gritted teeth, then by all means mindfully move. No violence. There's a very simple teaching or guideline which is attributed to Ajahn Chah, one of the great Thai forest masters of the last century. Whenever you want to bring your practice into perfect balance, simply remember this. This moment is like this. It's like this. It doesn't have to be changed to be as it is. The mind could be quiet and calm or restless and freaked out. The affect or emotion could be loving, kind, compassionate, at ease or anxious, fearful, angry, jealous. It's like this. It's summertime. The windows are open. And it's a little warm. Notice the body being warm. Where is it warmest? This is the fire element. Where is it cool? This moment is like this. on this inner journey, there's nothing to believe. There's nothing to attain. There's really just a remembering of that which we truly are, which is awake, that which knows. There does seem to be something we can do or practice, which is being mindful, being loving, being kind, being a little more concentrated. So we attend to each breath as it emerges out of nothingness, non-existence. Breathing in and breathing out. It's possible to be attentive in such a way that before the breath actually begins, there's a knowing of its impulse. It's predictable. The breath is starting now, and then we can observe it through the rising, the full filling of the lungs, the expanding of the chest and sides and back. And then there's the moment when it changes direction, and then we can follow that through its decline and then vanishing. And then there's pause. And we might simply stay aware or notice temperature. This moment is like this. In the process of awakening to what's happening, we strengthen mindfulness, heart-mind fullness, presence. By returning to the object of observation, the breath, the sensations of breathing, or whatever else you're attending to, we strengthen concentration. These are known as the wings of awakening. It doesn't seem like a huge intervention to wake up and return to the breath. But it leads to being aware of the thoughts, of the trance states we fall into, of the moods we identify with, of self-criticism. And every moment of awakening like this is a moment of freedom. When we're not on robot, when we're not simply doing what comes to mind, but we are awakening. Please now become aware of your whole body as it sits here. Notice how it breathes in and breathes out. Notice the life in the feet and the legs and the pelvis. It's all alive. In the chest and abdomen, fingers, hands, arms, shoulders, neck, face, ears, eyes, forehead, scalp. And notice the life in what you think of as your eyes. And then notice what it takes to plan to open the eyes. And then make that subtle effort that's required to peel back the eyelids, to initiate seeing. But seeing mindfully, seeing, knowing that seeing is happening. Seeing. Such incredible good fortune that seeing is still working, at least to some degree, for us. And now mindfully allowing yourself to move a little bit, to stretch just a bit. Notice, what does it take to do that, and what is that aliveness like? Avi, would you ask Doyle to come in? He's right just past the door. And Gary, would you please come up here? Well, I have a slight correction, and I thought I'd do it publicly to shame and humiliate you as best I could. No, I actually thought it would be lovely if you spoke just a moment or two about your Tuesday nights and about your class. Shameless promotion of the class.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Good morning. Oh, look at all those people up there. Hey. So, well, interestingly, the Tuesday night group, which is called Boundless Heart, was developed after I had done, a couple of years ago, I did a deep dive into the metta practice, into loving friendliness practice. And, it was a great success, and so we carried on a weekly group where that idea of bringing friendliness into our practice, that's the intention of the Tuesday night group. We do a lot of different practices, but for me, bringing friendliness into my practice made all the difference in the world. And what has developed on Tuesday night is been just wonderful. We have a great group of people. I like to say our group is Portland diverse, which means it's not very diverse, but it's a little more diverse than other places in Portland. And it's just talking about taking refuge in Sangha. I mean, we just have just a beautiful group of people every week that have really friendships and beautiful things have arisen out of that group. So this deep dive into metta class is starting again on the first week of October on Wednesday nights. So it'll be technically it's through the month of October and November. We're just a really deep dive into the metta practice, going through the different categories, how it's developed in the West, this methodical practice of opening our hearts, of unburdening ourselves, of cultivating friendliness for ourselves and for all beings. So, yeah, and then at the end of the first Saturday of December, which we normally do our day long, we do a day long each, the first Saturday of each month, but that first week of December will be a kind of an ending of the metta class, but also it's open to the community. So whether you go to the whole class or you just want to go to the day long, it'll be a full metta day long. Yeah, thank you. Hi, Doyle.
I'm stalking you. And another note on Gary's group, you're guaranteed enlightenment or your money back. So I'm Doyle. Would those of you who have completed the skillful speech class raise your hand? And the rest of you look around and note, we've got a pretty good contingent here this morning of what we call giraffes. And if you don't know what that means, come take the class and you can find out the secret giraffe teaching. Have any of you experienced what Led Zeppelin sang about many, many years ago? There we go. Thank you. Communication breakdown in any of your relationships at work or home? Yeah. Nonviolent communication, i.e. skillful speech in the Buddhist world, is a way to just about eliminate that from your life, from your relationships. No guarantee, absolute guarantee, but what I can tell you is for a guy whose kids didn't even want to talk to him for many years, having learned this along with my practice, I can happily say now I get to enjoy beautiful relationships with my 3 adult kids. I've seen this in my own life at work with an irate person, and after about 20 minutes, we were back in sync together. This person happened to be what we call an account executive or salesperson in our company. And a few days later, UPS guy showed up, handed me a package, and it was a beautiful Mont Blanc ballpoint pen and a gift card, American Express gift card from him, because he was so moved by the connection that we created in that moment. So if you'd like free ballpoint pens and gift cards and happily ever afters, show up Saturday morning here in the Dharma Hall, September 14th, and we'll have a day together to kick off the Skillful Speech class. We'll go till 5 o'clock, and then it'll be the next 10 Tuesday evenings, again here in the Dharma Hall, from 7 in the evening till 9:15, and we'll deep dive into a method called nonviolent communication, also known as compassionate communication or giraffe language. Just quickly, giraffe was the metaphor that Marshall Rosenberg, who created nonviolent communication, chose because it has the largest heart of the land mammals, and there are several other things that go along with that. But so if you want to give yourself the best chance possible to create connection, even during conflict, and I'll just say I got to experience this again. I'm in a new relationship, and we had our first real conflict this past week.
Uh-oh.
And I'm still in a relationship.
Yay.
And we sat down and we listened to each other. We brought empathy. We brought loving kindness to one another. And it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And this training can help you have that in all your relationships. Won't guarantee your money back, but I guarantee that if you come and you learn and you make the attempt to practice, it will change your life. Thanks.
Jim, would you talk about your Monday nights and also the half-day Qigong?
Okie doke. Yeah, I'll be here next Saturday for the September 1st Saturday retreat, and that's going to be the 7th, right? Yeah. That's an all-day retreat, and then on the 21st, I'll be back for a half-day Qigong retreat. On Mondays, we have a sort of a combination book group, meditation group. We've been working on Larry Rosenberg's book, Breath by Breath, and we just read it through paragraph by paragraph with time to really deepen our understanding of the Anapanasati Sutra on the breath, and then Larry Rosenberg's commentary on the sutra, how he has been teaching it for 35 or 40 years in Massachusetts. And we also have a sit and a little bit of Qigong. Not as much fun as here because my living room is much smaller. But anyway, we do a little bit of stretching. So the idea is that through connection with the body and connection with the breath and connection with the heart, we have a weekly recharge on Monday evening in Beaverton for those that are on the west side of the river and can't get over here as often as they'd like. So,
Thank you, Jim.
that's it.
And there are other classes, maybe Avi, you'll mention them when you do the announcements. And I too am doing a class this fall. We're reading an amazing book it's called The Five Invitations. The invitations are to not waste time, to begin now, to include our life really fully in our practice, and to include the reality that we're going to die. And I've been very deeply engaged in the preparation for the class. I read a couple of other books and this one. And it's the reality of passing away, disappearing, dying, it's more forefront than it's ever been for me. And also I had a friend die quite recently. And the notion is, and I believe it to be true, that when we truly remember that we're not here for long, then, may I have your hand, sir? Then this is priceless, right? Then we thank you. Then we realize it really is time to start facing the things that we do to avoid life. To really look at our addictions and to look at our use of these things and to notice how we have opportunities for intimacy and relationship and we turn away because now is what we have. So we'll be really focusing on that for 8 Wednesday nights. There's so much happening here. It's just burgeoning with wonderful practice and connection with people. So I'm going to invite you to do some Qigong, maybe a little shorter than usual, but enough. And so what happens from here, Jim will do some Qigong, Avi will do some announcements, and then we're going to have a Dharma talk from me. And then there's tea and coffee and goodies and love.
So I'm busy all week teaching Qigong and Tai Chi in different parts of the city. And it was about 8 years ago that I learned that 18 steps of the Shibashi routine. And since then, I've used that almost, I'm probably doing it 15 or 20 times a week. But I stumbled on the first thing I used to teach Qigong. It's a routine I saw on YouTube, and it's much shorter. But I haven't done it for 8 years because I love Shibashi, but we don't have time. So this other form uses things that are like Shibashi, but the first thing is just lifting and releasing. And like we begin Shibashi, most Tai Chi and Qigong starts with this, just relaxing the shoulders, relaxing the knees, full breath in, and then release. And that getting in touch with the rhythm of the breath. And then that rhythm moves through the whole body. And how the body moves affects our feelings and our thoughts. And sometimes we work the other way, use our thoughts to influence our feelings and our sensations. But this is working from the bottom up, from the sensations up. So let's step towards that side of the building and press, and then open your arms in a nice circle in each direction. And this is called calming the waters of the heart. This is what you do at the end of a conversation in nonviolent communication. It's hard to get started at the beginning if there's conflict. Excuse me. Let's step to the other side and just opening in circles, breathing in as you come back, breathing out as you move forward. That rhythm moves through the whole body and soothes all the jangly nerves that get hammered all day long from our intense culture, this focus so much on delusion and false promises that happiness is out there. It's right in here, right around the heart. That's where it is. All right, let's calm down a little bit. I mean, that's a calming one. And just open the hands, and you can do the same thing, establishing a rhythm just with your open palms. Your fingers are separate, and they can, so that the sensations around all the knuckles and the seams between the fingers can feel moving through space, moving through air. Works especially well on a day like this because my hands are sweaty from the heat. But whatever the temperature of the air is, it's going to connect with those little areas of perspiration. And I know I'm moving through space, and that rhythm gets repeated. We can do it with the knees too. As we come together, we can sink and then rise. But the idea is that the breath is influencing every cell every time we take a breath in. And so we open ourselves to that remembrance. We're mindful of how everything is connected. Nothing is left undone by a breath. There's new oxygen in the blood, new oxygen throughout the whole system, exchanged through the blood. The lymph system is activated, and there's renewal and removal of toxins with each breath. And we take that same ball of energy and move it out and down and breathe in as we lift it up. And then you really feel that wave-like rhythm through the whole body. The whole nervous system is soothed. Moving to the other side. But there's something about circles and soft movement, loosening up all the joints of the hands, the arms, the shoulders, the knees, the legs, the hips. Everything softens. Then we come back to the center and just stand and be aware that without a gesture, there's still activity in this standing form. And wherever we put our attention, we can feel the vitality and the dynamic quality of this breathing entity we call the body. So there's a marriage between the awareness and the process of supporting our weight, supporting our posture, breathing, smiling, bring our hands together in gratitude that we're here together. Thank you.
Good morning, Sangha. So, Doyle, you look so comfortable holding this giraffe. I hope you don't mind if I borrow it because I've got to make announcements in front of all these people and I'm a little stressed. So, it's the first day of September, and for those of us who have been on a school schedule or who have been supervising little ones who have had a school schedule, we may not realize it, but there are like 3 more weeks of summer left. I just thought I'd make that as an announcement. Took me a while to learn that, having taken 2 kids through school, and that makes me very happy. In terms of what's going on around here, we have an awful lot of things going on. September is sort of, the start where people come back from vacation, and we have classes, we have other things. As always, we need people to sign up to help with the little ones in the classroom every Sunday. This is a wonderful way in which you can be part of the next generation of PIMC, because maybe someday some of those kids who are sitting in that classroom will be out here among us doing mindfulness practice. And we can have a stake in the future of the Sangha going forward by helping in that classroom. And if you can offer some time, even an hour on a Sunday, that's great. If you could offer it on a regular basis to come in for an hour, like maybe once a month or once every other month or something, that would be even better. Details are on the website. You go to our homepage, virtually everything that is going on here is on the homepage. You don't have to go to any complicated menus or anything. It's right there in the boxes. After the Dharma talk today, we're going to have the monthly meeting of our Engaging the Dharma initiative, which is our Sangha's project to take what we learned in mindfulness seated on the cushion and bring it out in terms of mindful action into the community. And today, there are going to be several things that will be talked about, but the big thing that we are planning for is our participation in the Global Climate Strike on September 20th, which is supposed to be the largest climate action gathering around the world at one time ever. And it's youth-led. So if you are interested in that, please join us after the Dharma talk that we will be meeting in the living room. Then on September 7th, we've got our first Saturday monthly day-long retreat, which will be led by Jim. On Sunday, September 8th, we've got our second Sunday PIMC potluck. And then we have a number of classes that are starting this month. So Robert's class, Become Fully Alive, that's starting on September 11th. Doyle's Skillful Speech and Nonviolent Communication class is starting September 17th. And Doug Pullen's class, Basics of Mindfulness, is starting on September 19th. The details for all of these is in the catalog in the upper left-hand corner of the homepage. Just click on it. It will take you to the links that you need for more information and to register. These classes do tend to have upper limits because the teachers have found that if they have too many students, they really can't connect with students well, so they tend to have upper limits. So if you are intending to take these classes, please sign up now because there is a chance that we will have waiting lists on at least some of these classes. Then let's see. Then on September 21st, we've got 3 things going on. We've got our volunteer retreat. If you are a volunteer or have been a volunteer here, could you please raise your hand? And everybody look around. All those raised hands and your participation here today are what keep this place going. In addition to the contributions, the financial contributions that help us to pay the bills, it is the volunteer equity that we have that allows this place to keep going. If you would like to attend this volunteer retreat, all people who have volunteered or are volunteers are welcome. If you have not volunteered yet, I invite you to talk with Misty. Misty, could you raise your hand? Misty is one of our volunteer co-coordinators, along with Ipsia. She would be happy to get you plugged in. Then also on the 21st, we've got a half-day Qigong retreat with Jim. If you like what he did for 10 minutes, you'll love what he does for 4 hours, guaranteed. And then we've got movie night, which is a regular thing that we do, Buddhist movie night, which is movies that you might not think are Buddhist, but really are. And this one is American Beauty. This one is not for the kiddos. This is strictly for adults. And there's usually a discussion afterwards. Then on Monday the 30th is the start of the Noble Eightfold Path class. with Gregory and Christine. And again, I encourage you to go onto the website and to sign up if you are at all interested. Finally, we've got Dharma consultations here. If you have an issue that is coming up with your practice and you would like to talk with an experienced practitioner, or if you really have decided that you really want to start a daily practice, then we can help you with that as well. And Jim would be happy to meet with people for about 20 minutes today on either of those issues. If you cannot meet today, please contact me at the office, and I would be happy to connect you with our Teachers Council, and we can get somebody, a teacher, to meet with you sometime other than on a Sunday. And I just want to say it really is wonderful that you are all here. Thank you for coming to be a part of this community when there are so many other ways that you have of, doing other things on a Sunday morning. So blessings to you all, and have a wonderful Sunday. And yes, there were a couple of announcements. What's that? Okay, so there will be a mindfulness hike that is not yet on the website. That will be on the 4th Saturday. And Michael, let me get you the stick mic. Here. There you go.
Just because there hasn't been enough announcements, I figure I have to add a few more. First of all, I just wanted to express gratitude for everyone who has made donations and put into the what I call the Great Hope Chest. These donations go to Transition Projects, which is a wonderful organization downtown, which assists people moving from homelessness into a home. So they're very much appreciated, and I'm sure that they're putting smiles onto people's faces when they receive them. So thank you. Second of all, I just wanted to quickly mention there is a Monday night book circle, and it's going to start up with the newest book called Altered Traits. It's by Daniel Goleman and Richard Davidson. And Altered Traits is it's sort of a play on altered states. Altered traits are the lasting effects of our mindfulness practice, and it's science-based to show us what's really factual. The main reason that I wanted to stand in front of all of you is to give you a little more information about one of the things that Avi mentioned, and that is the Engaging the Dharma meeting today at 12:30. So there are actually two really big items on the agenda, and there's probably some other, but I'm kind of focused on the environmental aspect of Engaging the Dharma. And so there is a Eco-Sattva training program, which is delivered by One Earth Sangha, and it's a global training on how to address the environmental problems that our world faces with compassion, wisdom, and a new word that I just learned this morning, kindfulness. So how do we, it's a mixture of kind and mindfulness and equanimity. So that's what the Buddhist and eco-psychology trainings can provide for us. This will be 6 sessions led by different eco-dharma teachers from around the world. And how this will work is we will gather as a small group here, and we'll participate with other sanghas from all around the world. There will be 6 sessions, and over that period of time, we'll be able to bond with each other, and from that, I envision some really strong actions that we're going to want to put forth, and then we'll invite the whole community and perhaps even a larger group to get involved, and that's how it ties into Engaging the Dharma. And then the second, and so there will be more details on that at 12:30 if you're interested. The second item, as Avi mentioned, is the climate strike, which is on September 20th. And I'm not sure how many of you were aware of that already? Okay. And is everyone aware of the name Greta Thunberg? So it's an incredible story of what she has galvanized around the world. And we're living in that moment right now. So the climate strike is asking all the kids around the world to walk out of class on Friday, just as Greta Thunberg has been doing for the last year, in order to encourage the Swedish government to get aligned with the Paris Accord and the commitments that they made back in December of 2015. And so, as most of you know, we have even more work to do in this country. So This will be a focal point. It could be the biggest strike ever, and it's something that I felt like we needed to, as a community, get involved with. So we'll talk about that at the meeting at 12:30 as well. And I think my time limit is up, so thank you.
Please take a moment to be aware of seeing. Really come into contact with seeing. Or maybe first, let's become aware of contact with the chair. Contact. It's so not abstract, it's just contact. And then seeing. And then, if you wish, shift around a little bit so you can see and meet the gaze of others. Seeing and knowing it. And in this seeing, when you make what we call eye contact with another, become aware of their face and become aware of what's at your end of that interaction. And it's not a face. If you're aware of a face at your end, you're in imagination, fantasy. Because what's at my end, and I'm sure it's true for you too, is not a face, but it's a mysterious awareness. It's something profoundly, utterly indescribable, but directly experienceable awareness. And in a moment of that headlessness, and to quote Richard Lang and, I always block on his name, Douglas Harding, one of our members of the community is named Douglas Harding, so I confused them. But to be headless means to be awake, aware. I take refuge in that which is awake, aware. So much of the time we fall into the trances of from our childhood trauma, from advertising, and we're busy out there, and we can train ourselves to take refuge in the moment of knowing. That's why that beautiful saying, "This moment is like this," is so, so potent. I taught a 12-day retreat in Canada in July. Scheduled again for next July if you want to start planning. 12 days. And I must have said 100 times, I decided that before the retreat, that the theme was going to be, this moment is like this. It's like this. It's like this. I commute from Beaverton, and there's a 4-mile straightaway on Multnomah Boulevard. I bicycle it and I drive it, and I really enjoy going headless on that stretch. There's not much to do. You have to keep steering a little bit, but to go headless and then to watch, to observe as the world flows into me. It's very satisfying in a certain way. There's not a wanting to be somewhere else. It's just this moment is like this, and it's just flowing in and past. Not even in and past. The past, in and past, is a fantasy again, isn't it? I don't experience it back there. It's just that which is coming in, and that's happening for us right now too. It's all we ever have is this nanosecond of perception. Not even perception, of reception. Perception is something that happens in the mind where we create. For instance, let's listen to the sounds for a minute. Can you hear fans? Or can you hear sounds that you make into a fan? See if you can hear this sound with bare attention as though you've never heard it before. We hear this sound that we've heard many times, and because of history and remembrance and fantasy, we create a car or cars. The Buddhist teachings are very much, mindfulness teachings are very much about training ourselves, training the heart-mind, to perceive reality as it really is in this moment, as it actually is. That's what the word vipassana means, seeing things as they really are. And going before the concepts, going to the root experience, which is what's happening now. It's warm today, isn't it? I think in concept, I think the humidity must be high because I'm experiencing more. Could you close the window? As wonderful as that sound is to me, it seems distracting now. They say, those people who study such things, that with aging, distractibility gets higher, and damn, I think it's true. Or, why damn, maybe it's just fine. Just the moment, distracted. So as always happens on a Saturday afternoon, I started reflecting, well, what should I have this incredibly privileged position to sit here with people who are a very unusual slice of human beings. Beings who are willing to give up, to use their Sunday morning, to come and be in community and to practice mindfulness. That's a very rare person. One of the great pleasures of my life is to meet with people on retreat, when people are meditating all day and all night, and then to have conversation with such people. It's so edifying, and I learn so much about myself and about them and about the human process. And it's really the same here. What's important? Right? What to draw to our attention? And what came up since yesterday afternoon was as I mentioned before, I'm having a really fine time in getting deeply into that book, The 5 Invitations. And why are we meditating? To be really clear about that, why is it that we have an aspiration, maybe to have some time every day to turn inward? And what is it that we're trying to achieve? And if you listened to the advertising, mindfulness is a kind of snake oil. It'll fix everything. And in fact, if we take it, if we engage in it at all thoroughly, it really does have profound stress management effects. You know, around the country there are probably 10,000 people teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction, and it works. Even people with really next to no training are training people how to do basic mindfulness practice, and their symptoms from all kinds of ailments are being reduced. And the research is really solid. Over 100,000 people have done the mindfulness-based stress reduction program at the University of Massachusetts, where John Kabat-Zinn started the program. 100,000 people, and they've been measuring them physically, emotionally, tests of all kinds, and it really works. It reduces people's suffering and sometimes reduces the symptomatology. So that's a great reason to meditate. And then, let's have a show of hands. Who in this room has a sense that you're really having to work with your psychological nature because it's challenging? Right? I think it was here, I think I said last week, I'm really tired of myself. Isn't yourself a drag in some ways? It's unsatisfied. Of all the crazy things, myself is unsatisfied with itself. So then we sometimes meditate because of anxiety or loneliness or jealousy or anger or any number, all the things that trouble us that are psychological and emotional in nature. And lo and behold, it actually works. Doesn't mean these psychological processes or self patterns go away. That's a disappointment to me. I've been meditating since 1971. January the 20th, 1971 was when I went on my first retreat. And that person that went on that retreat had a wound from some neglect, and we call it in psychology world, insecure attachment. It was easy for him to feel abandoned. It's still easy for the personality to feel abandoned. I mean, that is disappointing. After all the therapy and meditation, what's different is that experience is now much less overwhelming and much more workable. It's like, well, hi, here you are. Yep, okay, you're here again. I know how to comfort you. I can be with this part of myself. And I know much more deeply, profoundly differently, that's not me. That's the mind being mind-body, because there's emotion involved. That's the self being itself. You have one of those, don't you? Funny, I just had a little intrusive thought. One of the mindfulnesses, one of the things to be mindful, according to the Buddhist teachings, is when mindfulness is present. It's so easy to be mindful when the unpleasant is present. When greed or hatred or fear or jealousy or loneliness, or when those are present, it's like we get motivated to notice, but there are all those other times when mindfulness is present and the phenomena that occur in consciousness occur, but don't have much effect because mindfulness is there moderating them or recognizing that that's not fundamentally who I am. So that's an important piece to add. When mindfulness is present, be aware that mindfulness is present. When concentration is present, be aware that concentration is present. And what's that? Concentration. Mind takes an object, maybe intentionally, I'm going to pay attention to the breath. Mind takes the object, mind gets kind of interested in the object. Mind gets really interested in the object. And then there's this almost like a fusion that happens, awareness and the object. So it's the breathing. And everything else really disappears. Not in some hyper-cosmic way, but the same way, when you're reading a book, you get lost in the book. Or when you go to a movie, you get lost in the movie. Well, we can get lost, or it's not so much lost, but so present in concentration that whatever I was worrying about 5 minutes ago ceases to exist in my experience. It may still be there, but it's no longer dominant. And now that's a skill really worth developing. Right? When you go to your meditation spot, to have the skill of relaxing and letting go and focusing in and really then experiencing the blessed relief of a concentrated mind. So there's mindfulness, which is awakeness, which is the utter miracle. Funny, I remember I heard teachers talking this way, and I always kind of thought, what are they, they're kind of beating the point into the ground, aren't they? But right now, we could say, it's inaccurate, but we could say, you're aware. You can be aware. More accurately, it would be there is awareness. There's awareness that somehow or another the self-structure claims as it's my awareness. Is it really? Is it really your awareness? Or is it much bigger than that? It is that which knows. It's that which is aware. So I'm approaching the point that I wanted to make this morning, that I always address in my first Sunday of the month gatherings. And it's this. It's really worthwhile knowing what our goal is. What will signify success in our meditation? And there's a very common, maybe universal misunderstanding that results in most people that I get to talk to feeling disappointed about themselves or about the meditation. And it comes from the belief that if I'm doing it right, then at will, at any time, I will be able to go into deep concentration and bliss and ease, and life will be pleasant. You relate to that? It's like a good meditation is one in which thinking diminishes or even better disappears. And if there's pain in the body or there's some anguish happening, that it will go away, and that I will be experiencing that place, that quality of consciousness that I remember from this time when everything fell into place. I'm thinking of a kind of archetypal experience I had quite a long time ago now. It was during a really awful divorce custody battle, terrible, anguished time in my life. And I was at a little retreat center, Cloud Mountain, north of Portland, and there used to be some stairs. They replaced them with a road. But there were some stairs, some stone stairs. And one afternoon or one morning, I was out walking, and I was on my way up the stairs to go to my walking spot. And from one step to the next, the mind went quiet. And concentration was precise. And there was no wandering. And it was such a relief. And I went up to my spot and I walked back and forth for an hour, and it was just concentration. And then I went down and I sat for another hour, and then it was lunch. And I remember the mind thinking, I hope you're not getting attached to this, because this likely isn't permanent. No, I'm fine. I've got an eye on it. And then I went to lunch, and then I came back from lunch. I had a little nap after lunch, and I came back, and I went to my meditation cushion. And I was in the hell realm of an impending or an ongoing divorce. And it just was awful. And the funny part, the punchline is that after that sitting, I found myself back on the stairs, walking up. And at that particular stair, I was like, ready now? I went back and forth, now? Now? But it wasn't to be found. So we can, and I don't mean in any way to disparage or diminish the importance that we can develop the capacity to move into deep concentration states way beyond what Western psychology has even an inkling. We can develop the capacity to really suppress the hindrances and enter into profound states. The Buddhist terminology for them is the jhanas. Very great skill to have. And they're not the goal. So what's the goal? If we were to substitute instead of that, I intend every time I meditate to be in a state of bliss and ease and concentration and spaciousness and non-suffering because of suppression. What if we were to substitute I aspire to being capable of accepting anything and everything that occurs in my life with less and less acting out, less and less addictive pushing away, and more kindness, compassion, and love. I can't remember if it was that very retreat. It might have been that retreat that I had that experience on. But anyway, I was there at Cloud Mountain with one of the elders of this tradition, Achan Sumedho. There are books, there's a compendium of 4 or 5 volumes of his teachings, which you can you listen to them too? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I don't know if you can listen to them, but there's tons of stuff online with Achan Sumedho, and I highly recommend them. He's just so loving and no nonsense and clear. But anyway, my job on that retreat was cleaning the kitchen late at night. And I bumped into him there. He was getting his coffee for the morning. And I asked him, so what? You've been meditating all these decades as a monk in Thailand. What's the fruit of that? What do you really have? And he was so big. He's a big, tall man. He was 6'4" or so, has this huge smile. And he said, Robert, I think I'm going to be able to handle anything that comes to me in this lifetime. Now that's quite a skill, don't you think? So, what if the intention could be, I really aspire to be able to accept what's happening in this moment exactly as it is. So that then would mean when I come to meditation, a formal meditation, I could sit down, I could do a little chanting if that's what I do, or a little loving kindness meditation, a little gratitude practice, and then I could decide, well, I'm going to practice mindfulness of breathing, or I'm going to simply practice being present and allow what happens to happen. And no matter what happens, I'm not going to fight with anything. That could mean that I might sit here with worrying happening, but worrying isn't a problem if it's not dived into. It isn't if I don't take the worry and make a cloak of it. Now, a very common question that arises when speaking of accepting things as they are, then one question would be, well, what about self-hatred that's happening in the mind? Or what about child abuse that's happening right in front of you? Or what about the problems of the world? And this practice of accepting things exactly as they are is an internal process with internal experiences. And if I can accept what's happening internally exactly as it is, I can actually see what it is. I can see clearly how it's working. I can see how that mental process, that physiology involvement, I can perceive how that's happening. And isn't that exactly what we need to know to make a good diagnosis, to know what to do next? 2 weeks ago, I think I talked about the practice around activism. And the ultimate activism is, what do I do with, here's the karmic cosmic moment arising as this mental phenomenon. Can I leave love, wisdom, compassion? Can I plant love, wisdom, compassion to be present in that moment, which is the wake I leave behind me in my life? That's the Genesis moment. That is truly the Genesis moment. This moment. So these events, these perceptions, these memories, and so on arise. How shall I respond to them? If I respond to them in an open way, an opening, compassionate, loving, equanimous way, then that's how I respond to the next moment, and that's who I become. There might be, and Michael was talking about engagement and activism, there might be, for some people at some times, something comes in, it's like, I want to do something about that. We had a letter writing campaign here last Sunday, very beautifully done. And there's all kinds of active things we can do. If in a moment you saw someone about to harm a child, of course you would intervene. You wouldn't say, oh, I practice Buddhist meditation and I'm non-engaged. In fact, you might well take an action which could cost you your life, because that's not acceptable. I'm not going to allow that to happen. But in our inner realm, for the development of our own awakening, the only way we can do it effectively is to accept what is. Is this making sense? That if we can't, it's almost like, it's a silly analogy, but nah, not going to use it. That's actually a good example. Out of wherever ideas come from, came an idea just then. And it sort of fits, but it's not really a very good fit. And then there was that moment of pausing, which is, well, should I, shouldn't I? But there's a choice then that gets to be made with, no, that's not a karmic seed I want to plant. That won't help. And so that's a moment when we get to choose. And they're happening all the time. That's how we choose our destiny in every moment. So then why are we meditating? I have a little article. I haven't read it in a long time. I wrote it for the PIMC newsletter back when we had a paper newsletter. It's on robertbeatty.com under resources. The little article was, I want to be a Buddha when I grow up. What's that about? I'd like to be wise, loving, kind, compassionate. I'd like to live well, and I'd like to die well. Worthy aspiration. I'd like to become, when we say I want to become more loving, Doyle did a beautiful description of that around the NVC and your relationship and the who you've shaped yourself to be out of your past. That this kind of practice can, in fact, shape and reshape our personality. We're not at all stuck with the amount of awareness or love or compassion that we have right now. It seems to be infinitely developable. It's funny, there's an intuition here, and the words are not coming. What if it's true that we're not just this? I mean, I take the story of my birth and this lifetime, all these things that have happened in relationships I've had, and I take this all pretty darn seriously. And I guess one should. We need to. But it's all going to end much sooner than I imagine, right? I've been reading lots of end-of-life stories, and it'll probably end. I mean, who knows? Could be right now, right? But it's quite possible it will end. This lifetime will end with a little time, maybe. And then one gets to watch the struggles that this individuality goes through. I watched Ruth Denison, my teacher of so many years. I watched her in the last couple or 3 years of her life, how she struggled with the fact that she was on the brink of dying. And then in her dying, she had a stroke, and then she lived 11 days without any food or water. But it looked like work. It looked like it's work to get born, it's labor, and there's a labor to get out. And I'd like to do that consciously, wouldn't you? The friend of mine who passed away it's a couple of months now, he had a stroke that left him in what they call it the locked-in syndrome. He was completely conscious, but he could move only he could only blink. That was his mode of communication. And his family, they were so glad that they had that time, because over those days when he was on life support, they had all the conversations that were unhad. And the main conversation was, 3 blinks means I love you. 2 blinks means no. Yes and no. But they got to say goodbye in a very beautiful way. So, what if it's true that we're not just these bodies and these neurotic complexes, but we're actually an infinite capacity to love, an infinite capacity to be compassionate? What if we really don't have to go for the rest of our lives having enemies? Right? We're in a time of having lots of enemies. Neighbors become enemies. They believe something politically different, so therefore I hate them. That's so tedious, having someone to be in conflict with. Conflict is so tight. What if it's possible, and I believe it is, what if it's possible to really see our utter interbeing? And then we still might involve ourselves in conversations, try to change somebody's mind or try to do something. But what if we could spend the rest of our days more and more at peace with everybody, with our estranged child or with. I think that's what the Buddha was teaching, to stop the war, stop the fight. And it's so strange that we do that by something as simple as sitting down and paying attention to the breath. And of course it doesn't, that's the training wheels. The breath is training wheels, right? It's useful, but before long, we're not necessarily using the breath, and we're just aware of the body as a mass of life. And then these astounding sounds start moving through. And then some old memory comes up, and then there's some contraction, I'm mad at that person. And we get to see these phenomena occurring, and we don't have to interfere with any of it, and we don't have to exert any effort. Because it's our natural state. It's one of the things I heard this decades ago, and I wondered, is it true that the Buddhist teachings are that when we relinquish the obscurations, when we relinquish the contractions, what's left is love, metta. What's left is compassion. Because, and it makes sense also theoretically. What if I knew that I were you and you were hurting? Would I not respond with, how can I help? Because it's just natural. And same with sympathetic joy, the third of the Brahma Viharas, the abode of the gods. Sympathetic joy. If I see you having success and happiness, and you're me, why would I not delight in that? And then that fourth mysterious affective state, which is equanimity, which is things are okay. Everything really is okay. There's nothing to worry about. I mean, we can pay attention to the news, that particularly odd selection of phenomena. We can pay attention to the news and it's another shooting in Texas. And there's and the Amazon's burning. It burns every summer, hugely. But this is happening, and we can get around things that we have no agency, we have no capacity to affect. What if we had the capacity also then to go into equanimity and realize, oh yes, this is happening and there's no reason to contract, but instead I can open and maybe do the grieving that's necessary. This is what's happening. These forces that are beyond human control are occurring. Why be contracted and fighting with people? Why not open and be completely loving? And the why not, I think, is because we just don't know how. But the Dharma is right there. The Buddha's teachings are so simple. But they do take changing tracks in a way, don't they? That I will take time every day, at a minimum, to spend my 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. And I've said this many times. Most of you have heard me say this, I think. That something that happens at a certain point. At the beginning, it's, I'm going to meditate. I'm going to be a meditator. And then over time, what shifts is, I am the meditation. I am that which knows. And then it becomes, it's not, oh, I'll sit for 15 minutes. It's, oh, look, I have a couple of hours in my schedule this afternoon. I could go lie in the hammock. Or I could hold the baby. I could maybe get to my grandchildren and I could hold the baby for a while. I could stop doing. I could become a human being. So, and it's all just one breath. It's so strange, isn't it? One breath at a time. There's a giraffe sitting in front of me. So thank you for listening, for being interested, for supporting this amazing place that we get to have. Haven't heard the kids yet. Are they there? They're not there yet. Let's just, if I were to say, let's just meditate a few moments, several of you would change position. Don't. Just be aware. We don't need to hurry the Mavi in any way. They'll come when they're ready. Being aware of breathing. They'll come. Rebecca's very dependable. Did we score getting Rebecca to be our children's program teacher and the wonderful engagement of community members with that? So we have this moment of breathing, of sitting, what if it's really enough right now? We don't need to meditate to get somewhere or become more of anything. Just this. The body becomes a mass of life, doesn't it? Tingling, vibrating, warm, cool. Sounds of children. Are they in the chute? I recently got to do one of my, I almost always do this when it happens. Are they there? Just hang on a second. I was on a plane and there was a baby screaming on the way up. And as soon as we were up, and the baby was continuing to cry, I got up and I went back to talk to the couple. Because the couples are individuals, usually a woman. It's like, because they're concerned that everyone around them is hating them and so on. And I went back and I said, well, you have a baby and your baby's crying, and that's absolutely normal, isn't it? And if anybody around you is upset, they forget that they were babies once. And your baby's ears are hurting likely. So I hope you'll take care of yourselves and don't worry about anybody around you. You can see that they just, here's this gray-haired old guy comes and says, it's okay, let your baby be a baby. Because it's really true, right? If you can't handle that, what are you going to do when something serious happens? Oof. So, thank you. Please let the young people in. Please, let's make a big circle. Thank you to those of you who joined us on the internet or are still here. Please do come and share a cup of tea and schmooze with the very beautiful people who are here. Oh, sorry, bonked you. Hi, I'm a giraffe.
Giraffes can't talk.
I can talk. I'm a giraffe. I only say loving things, though. How do you mean a giraffe can't talk? Is this man's lips moving? No. Hi. What?
I see the
I see the giraffe's feet too. Let's clap like a giraffe. Hi, everyone. Let's wave like a giraffe. Hi, everyone. Yay. So, may I hold your hand? Thank you. Would you like to hold her hand? May I hold your hand? And please take a hand. Find a hand to hold. We're so lucky to have bodies and hands to do things in the world and to connect with each other. So with our hearts, the heart mind, why not wish the person to your right something good? Think a kind thought. May you live in a world of great love and compassion. And the person on your left, and give their hand a little squeeze. May you be safe and free from fear and danger. Think about what you would have as your blessing or wish and pass it on to the persons beside you and beside them and around the circles, and really on into the circles of life that contains all of us humans, 7-point-some billion of us, and countless beings who live in the air, the earth, and the waters. What if it's true that there's really only one consciousness, then we share it? May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. Oh, and let's not forget the person between your hands. I tend to forget that person. Think about that person. Wish this one well and happy and free and joyful and wise and awake. Okay, and then the recently properly tuned microphone, so it's working. Who is it? I think it's you. Okay, it's us. Yay. Here you go.
May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, now, wait. We have to exert patience. Okay. Would you back up a little bit, please? I don't want anyone's hair to catch fire. So, we're going to do the usual thing. Please, everyone in the circle gets to participate and at home, taking in a huge deep breath and thinking a kind thought, and then 1, 2, 3, go. You did not get to, I'm so sorry. Well, there was a false start, but we did it. Yay! Hi. Thanks for being here. Not dead yet. It's true.